بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. الدرس التاسع عشر في صلاة التراويح وأحكامها, in regards to the prayer of Tarawih and its rulings. And by the way, subhanAllah, I think there have been a few days we've missed out. So for that reason, I'm going to increase the number of chapters that we take, just so that we are able to finish on time. So we'll probably take 5 chapters today, 5 chapters tomorrow, and then finish the day after. But hopefully you guys have not, even if you have not uploaded, you've not stopped, you've carried on, and no problems when we to continue after Ramadan also. So this chapter is regarding Taraweeh, and the Shaykh starts off by saying, اعلوا وفقني الله وإياكم أن مما شرعه لكم نبي الهدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم في هذا الشهر المبارك صلاة التراويح وهي سنة مؤكدة. So from the thing which the guided Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, or the Prophet of guidance Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, from the things that he has legislated in this blessed month is Salat al-Tarawih, and it is a sunnah mu'akkada, emphasized sunnah. سمي التراويح, why is it called Tarawih? لأن الناس كانوا يستريحون فيها بين كل 4 ركعات, because the people used to take a break after every 4 ركعات, يعني 2 units. You pray 1, 2 and then salam, and 1, 2 again salam, and then a break. So 4 ركعات in total, 2 taslims. You say salam twice. Yeah? And that's what the word tarawih comes from. يعني كانوا يتروحون. التروح means to basically take a break and to relax. So that's where the name comes from. لأنهم كانوا يطيلون الصلاة, because they used to lengthen the prayer. So, I don't want to go into too many issues, but when you talk about what's the sunnah in tarawih, what did the Prophet ﷺ do? The sunnah is 2 things, quantity and quality. So we always talk about 8 is the sunnah, that's the Prophet ﷺ did. Yes, but at the same time, there's another part to that sunnah, which is that those 8 were very long as well. They were long. They're not like how they are now. So they were long. And that's why you'd find many of the Salaf do 20. Imam Malik used to do 36. And other is to be narrated, other companions, other Salaf, other ulama from the Salaf did other amounts. So with that being the case, we learn that if you're going to make it long, then you decrease the number of rak'at. If you're going to make the amount that you recite less, then you increase in the number of rak'at. Wallahu alam. But the main thing is that the sunnah is 8 and they were long as well. وفعلها جماعة في المسجد أفضل فقد صلىها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بأصحابه في المسجد ليالي ثم تأخر عن الصلاة بهم خوفا من أن تفرض عليهم. The Prophet prayed in Jama'ah with the people for a number of nights, and then he stopped, and the Shaykh mentions the hadith after that. So this shows that the Prophet did pray Tarawih, but the only reason he stopped, as mentioned in the hadith, خشيت أن تفرض عليكم, that I fear that it may become obligatory upon you. So it is actually something which the Prophet ﷺ did. That's how when Umar, he came and he said نعمة البدعة هذه regarding Tarawih, then he doesn't mean it's something new. It just means a linguistic meaning, in the sense that this is something Prophet did, but then he stopped because he's scared that it's become obligatory. Now that reason is no longer there because the Prophet has passed away. So when Umar gathered the people again, then it is just continuing something that the Prophet ﷺ has already done before. And then the Shaykh mentions a number of other hadith and ayat. And then the Shaykh just talked about the number of rak'at, and he says, لا بأس, it's not, والأمر في ذلك واسع. The Prophet said, صلاة الليل مثنى مثنى. The prayer of the night is 2 rak'ats, 2 rak'ats. There's no limit to it. You can pray as much as you want. So then he mentions a statement of Shaykh al-Islam upon how they pray different amounts, 20 according to Madhab Ahmad al-Shafi'i, 63 according to Madhab Malik, and then it's pray 11, and that's good because that's the Prophet did. فيكون تكثير ركعات أو تقليلها بحسب طول قيام وقصره. Depending on how many rak'at you do is dependent, or how less you do is dependent upon how long your qiyam and how short your qiyam is. And this is still a statement of Ibn Taymiyyah, I believe, because the Shaykh actually says انتهى كلامه here, so I'm guessing the statement is always still there. But then the Shaykh, he does mention something very important. He talks about طمأنينة. والطمأنينة ركن والمطلوب في الصلاة حضور القلب بين يدي الله تعالى واتعاظه بكلام الله إذا يتلى. So basically the Shaykh is saying that the number of rak'at isn't the most important issue. The most important issue is having طمأنينة in salah, having a khushu' in your salah. Otherwise, what's the point? What's the point of your salah? The whole point is to gain a khushu' and get closer to Allah subhanahu وتعالى. He says لأن لب الصلاة وروحها هو إقبال القلب على الله. The spirit and the soul of salah is getting closer to Allah. That's the meaning behind it. And as for fasting, as for reading a fast, then if there's no khushu', then what's the point? And even when it's fast, the Shaykh says, والسرعة المباحة هي التي لا يحصل معها إسقاط شيء من الحروف. Is when you read fast, every letter has to be clear. It's not, for example, if somebody was to recite fast, if they were to recite, right, half the letters are not even said. But if they were to recite fast in a sentence, like similar to ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين, here each letter, you can tell each letter is being said. So that's very important. So then Sheikh just carry on talking about this, and that's how he finishes off talking about it. And in the footnotes he does mention how some people are reading too fast and many imams just read fast, and it's as though the goal and the spirit behind Taraweeh is finishing the Quran. No, it's not finishing the Quran. Even though yes, it should be. For some did finish the Quran, they did recite the whole Quran, Jibreel alayhi salam. But the most important thing is what? Is having the tuma'neen and the khushu' and getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The next chapter is regarding learning the Quran and teaching it, especially in this month. And the Shaykh talks about some famous ayat and points which I'm pretty sure most of you are aware of, so I'm not going to mention them. But then the Shaykh, he says here, and he says, وَقَدْ إِنْقَسَمَ النَّاسُ مَعَ الْقُرْآنِ إِلَىٰ أَقْسَامٍ. People are different types when it comes to the Quran. And we did have a lecture recently regarding Ramadan and Quran. Also in Durus Muhimma in the beginning, we talked about different types of people when it comes to the Quran. And we said there were 3 types of people. The Shaykh here mentions actually 4 types of people. So he mentions the first, he says, فَمِنْهُمْ يَتْلُوهُ حَقَّ تِلَاوَتِهِ وَيَهْتَمُ بِدَرَاسَتِهِ عِلْمًا وَعَمَلًا وَهَؤُلَاءِ هُمُ السُّعَدَاءُ. So those people that actually recite it correctly and they ponder over it and they learn about it and they act upon it. And these are those who are going to be happy and people of paradise. Then he says, وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْهُ فَلَمْ يَتَعَلَّمْهُ وَلَمْ يَلْتَفِتْ إِلَيْهِ. And then there are those who are totally, turn away from it. They don't learn anything. They don't want anything to do with it. And then he carries on to say, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ, this is the next type, مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَلَكِنَّ أَهْمَلَ تِلَاوَتَهُ. People who learn the Quran, but then they don't recite it. So it's just learning ilm, but there's no actual recitation of the Quran. And then the last type of people is وَقَدْ ذَمَّ اللَّهُ مَنْ اقْتَصَرَ عَلَى التِّلَاوَةِ مِنْ غَيْرِ تَفَهُّمٍ. And then this is the opposite. Those who just recite without understanding. So here, those that learn but don't recite, these people that recite but then don't ponder. So the Shaykh mentions different people. I think Allah, the best way is the way we did in Shaykh Sarhan, the one that we used from his explanation of Durus al-Muhimma in the beginning. The next is now regarding zakah. Now zakah is something that I don't want to go into too much depth right now, but it is important to learn. But we will take this inshallah. We'll take in Durus al-Muhimma because we will take it quite shortly. We just got, I think, Salah, Fiqh Salah left summarized, and then we're on to Zakah, which we will continue after Ramadan, inshallah. And also we'll take it longer and more in depth when you go into our level 2 and we take a Fiqh, whole Fiqh book, inshallah. But the Shaykh, he talks about the importance of Zakah as a pillar of Islam. And then he says, وَقَرِينَتُهَا فِي الذِّكْرِ فِي كَثِيرٍ مِنَ الْآيَاتِ الْقُرْآنِ. It's always mentioned with Salah. Yeah, in the Quran, many places. حيث قرنها الله سبحانه بالصلاة في نيف و30 آية. In 30 odd ayat, Allah mentions them together. That's a fa'idah. How many times is Salah mentioned with Zakah? You can say it 30 odd times. And Nayif, Wallahu A'lam, I think is similar to Bid'a, meaning it's a number between 3 and 10. But this is something I'm mentioning off the top of my head right now, so please, maybe just double check that. And if somebody can confirm in the comments, that'd be good as well. And now the rest of the chapter, and you can maybe even write a different title for this chapter. The Shaykh basically mentions the benefits and the harms of zakah. So the benefits of giving zakah and the harms of abstaining from giving zakah. So after that, and it's every time he says fiha, that's how I've basically numbed it. So he says وَفِيهَا مَصَالِحْ عَظِيمَةً أَعْظَمُهَا شُكْرُ اللَّهِ. So the first is thanking Allah, وَامْتِثَالُ أَمْرِهِ بِالْإِنْفَاقِ مِمَّا رَزَقَ. So it's thanking Allah for the ni'mah that is given upon you. And also from the ways that you thank Allah is by acting upon with your limbs, right? Remember we took this in Al-Qada Arba'. So you fulfill the commands of Allah by spending. Number 2, والحصول على وعده الكريم للمنفقين بالأجر. Second is that you gain the promise, the reward. Number 3, ومنها مساواة الأغنياء لإخوانهم الفقراء في سد حاجاتهم ودفع الفاقة عنهم. Basically, is the rich are helping the poor, and the poor, especially in time of Ramadan, they're not feeling poor. And the chapter is about zakat generally, but we can use it for zakat al-fitr and so on. But generally, there's people who are given the zakat, they're not feeling as poor, and then they can live their lives a lot easier and so on. Number 4, ومنها تطهير المزكي من البخل والشح والأخلاق الذميمة. That's purification from many things, purification of his wealth, purification of from stinginess and so on. Number 5, وجعلوا في صفوف المحسنين. It makes him from those who do ihsan. And then it mentions a few ayat. ومنها أنها, after the ayat, تسبب نماء المال. It's a means of increasing your wealth. The Prophet said, a Muslim, ما نقصت صدقة قط, something similar to that, صدقة never decreases wealth. And then the Shaykh also mentions an ayah for this as well. ما نقص صدقة مال امرئ ومال قط. نعم, that's the hadith. And the Shaykh just mentioned the hadith. He says, وفي الحديث الصحيح يقول الله تعالى يا ابن آدم أنفق عليك. أنفق, is it أنفق عليك or ينفق عليك? Is either يا ابن آدم أنفق ينفق عليك. I think that's what it is. يا ابن آدم أنفق ينفق عليك. You need to double check the wording of that hadith. على كل حال, O son of Adam, spend and you will be spent upon. And now the Shaykh talks about some of the harms. So I'll just mention them generally. Firstly, منها ومنع الزكاة يسبب أضرارا عظيمة منها الحرمان من هذه المصالح. The first is that you're deprived of all of the benefits that we mentioned previously. Number 2, ومنها تعريض المال للتلف والهلاك. That it's an opportunity for your wealth to become destroyed. تعريض from عرض means to show. So it's like showing your wealth to destruction. And the Shaykh basically talks about how, you find some people that don't give zakah, you'll find the wealth actually ends up decreasing in different ways. Whether they get bankrupt, whether there's a fire, whether there's, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the wealth go away. Next, ومنها, next paragraph, منع القطر من السماء. قطر means rain basically. So it stops rain coming from the skies. And that's mentioned in some hadith. Number 4, وكل مال لا تؤدى زكاته فهو كنز يعذب به صاحبه يوم القيامة. And every wealth that you perform the zakah with, then it's actually something that it's a treasure that will punish its companion on the day of judgment. Subhanallah. And the Shaykh expands on that point. And then he talks about the importance of zakah, and he talked about how Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he fought those people after the death of Prophet who did not give the zakah because he said that I would fight those people who differentiate between zakah, salah and zakah. Allah mentions salah and zakah together, and we know that people that don't pray then they're not considered Muslim. Yeah, especially those that don't believe that it's obligatory. So Abu Bakr said this exact same thing regarding zakah. I would fight anyone who differentiates between salah and zakah. And this was many hypocrites at that time, that once the Prophet, there's majority hypocrites, that when the Prophet passed away, they saw this as an opportunity to not give zakah anymore. It requires a bit more explanation, but that's basically the gist of it. And Umar radiallahu anhu was initially against it, but then after Abu Bakr was quite stern, he was quite angry. Then once Abu Bakr was quite firm, Umar said that I saw him to be very firm and angry, and had set his mind, and then I realized that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had opened his heart to this action. Then the next chapter, the Shaykh now talks about regarding the zakah and what's obligatory regarding zakah, what you have to give zakah in. Now zakah is given in 4 things. We'll take them in Durus Muhimma. The Shaykh only mentions 2. He mentions money, and he mentions your business earnings. Urud al-tijara, the words are coming to us, subhanAllah. Your possessions for trading, for business, the things that you buy and selling, the objects that you're buying and selling, subhanAllah, I'm forgetting the word. But these are the two things that the Shaykh mentions. There's others as well. There's Bahimat al-An'am, which is your cattle, and al-Kharij min al-Ard, which is that which comes out of the earth. So, if you've got a farm, all the things that come out. But, the Shaykh didn't mention those, and maybe some hikmah that many people, especially now in England and stuff, we don't really, we're not really into that. We're more into money and our businesses. So regarding the first, he says, النقدان. النقدان is الذهب والفضة وما يقوم مقامهما. And what's taken, what's in their place. So he explains, من الأوراق النقدية, the paper that we have, the notes that we have, الذي والتي يتعامل بها الناس اليوم, that the people are using now. And then Shaykh carries on to say that if the nisab is reached, and the nisab, we'll talk about how much the nisab is later. The Shaykh mentions regarding riyals in the footnotes, but in terms of pounds, I don't know. I told my head, I don't really know how much it is, so I'm not going to mention it. But if you reach the nisab, which is the amount, it's like a threshold that it does fluctuate slightly depending on the price of gold and silver, which kind of changes every day. But the point being is that there's an nisab, there's an amount. If you reach that amount, then you have to give zakah. And how much? Here the Shaykh says, وَمِقْدَارُهَا رُبْعُ الْعُشُرِ. رُبْعُ الْعُشُرِ. Get used to this wording. رُبْعُ الْعُشُرِ literally means a quarter of a tenth, which is 2.5. What's a quarter of a tenth? What's 10 divided by 4? 2.5. That's why it says, A, رِيَالَانِ وَنِصْفٌ مِنْ كُلِّ مِئَةٍ. You get 2.5 riyals from every 100 riyal. It's the same thing. So 2.5 pounds, 2.5 pounds from every 100 pounds, and so on. And he said, this is, so all the money that you have, whether you all these savings, that even if you saved it for marriage, for buying something, whatever you saved, you have to give it, even if you're big, small, so even if there's a young kid. And that's why, even orphans, there's a zakah taken from the money, but Wali would pay that on their behalf. Wali would pay, whoever's looking after the orphans would pay that on their behalf. Because this is a haqq, of Allah and of the people that it's been given to. So it has to be given to them. And then Shaykh, he carries on saying that this money that you have has to be with you for a year. And then the Shaykh talks about how al-ahwat, so here al-ahwat was maybe safer, is that if you pick a particular month, such as Ramadan. Now it's not, some of them have said that, it might be more ajr, not necessarily ajr, but like it's more of a virtuous time. But there's no special like reward for doing it in Ramadan. However, especially us, because we don't really use the Hijri calendar, let's be honest, we don't really use it as much. I think people are more aware of when Ramadan is, and mentally you can prepare throughout the year of when Ramadan is. So Ramadan is a good time for your year to start, because then you kind of know, yearly, you know what it is, when it is. It's a good time to start. And then Shaykh talks about if you have loans, that let's say you've given somebody money. If you've given somebody money, then that money that you've given, you have to give zakat on that. And the Shaykh basically, I'm summarizing, the Shaykh says, if you know that person, it's easy for him to pay him back. So whenever you need the money, they can pay you back generally. And you have hope that they'll pay you back, it's a trustworthy brother or whatever it may be, then yes, you have to pay zakat on that. If, however, you know that this person is maybe a cheater, or this person, he's not going to be able to give it back in the time that we've agreed, and we don't have a clue when he's going to give it back, in that case, then you don't give zakah, and you only give zakah once he has given you back. Then you give zakah for 1 year only, upon the correct opinion of Allah. So if it's easy, so let's say you've given your cousin, uncle some money, £10,000 for example. Do you have to give zakah on that 10,000? Yes. If you have no hope that he's going to give it back, then no. And then the Shaykh uses the opposite as well, right at the end in the last sentence, which is the opposite. If you have a debt to pay, do you still give zakah? And the Shaykh says, yeah. Because if you have a debt to pay and you have money, then you have to pay zakah. Obviously, if you got no money, then what are you going to pay zakah on? Like, let's say in your bank you've got like £10, that's it, and you got to pay somebody off then. Obviously, you don't have the money, but if you have the money, it's reached the nisab and so on, then you got to give the zakah. You have to give the zakah, and that debt that you own, that you have to pay off, doesn't affect giving zakah. The second is عروض التجارة, which I was talking about before, which is وهي السلعة المعروضة للبيع, which is the possessions that you have which are ready for بيع, for selling. And the Sheikh gives a number of examples. And then the Sheikh carries on to say, فإنه عند تمام الحول, حول basically means year. حول is something, you know, كالراعي يرعى حول الحمى. حول is like going around in a circle. So a year, you know, you kind of come back in a circle, right? So إذا حال عليه الحول, they say that a lot, which basically means a year has gone by. أو على ثمنها التي اشتريت به يقومها بأن يقدر قيمتها التي تساويها عند تمام الحول, سواء كان قدر قيمتها التي اشتراها بها أو أقل أو أكثر, ولا ينظر إلى ما اشتراها به. Basically, let's say you've got something for a year, you've had this for a year, do you give zakah? And let's say the thing that you're selling, you bought it for £100. The following year comes and it's something now which costs, which you can, the price in the market now is £200. Right? Do you give the zakah upon how much you bought it for, which was 100 in this case, or on 200, which is how much it costs now? Okay. Obviously, I'm saying 100, 200. Obviously, in total, you have to go over there and solve. But just for ease of understanding, the point being is that you give zakah upon how much it was last year, or how much it's now. It's how much it's worth now. However much it is worth now, that's how much. That's what you give the zakah upon. And you don't look at it. Doesn't matter how much you bought it for. You look at how much it is worth at that time. And then she carries on to mention that. So it's very important to calculate everything that you have, big or small. Calculate all of that, and you have to give zakah upon all of that. And then in the next paragraph, the Sheikh mentions that as for those things that you use on a day-to-day basis, like your house, you don't have to give zakah on that. You don't have to give zakah on that. In the next next paragraph, sorry, he talks about shares in a company. If you are earning from that, then yeah, you have to give zakah in that also. Then the Sheikh in the next paragraph talks about the importance of intention. So when you give the zakah, you have to give it with the intention that it's zakah, not as any other type of sadaqah or just a good action. It has to be zakah. And then the Sheikh also mentions in the next paragraph that it's permissible to give the job to somebody else to give, like, to pay your zakat on your behalf. So let's say you've got an accountant and you tell him that, look, this is everything I have. You explain everything and sort it out with him, and you know that there's your zakat works out to be, I don't know, £1,000, for example, and you say, all right, you say to your accountant, you pay it for me. That's fine. That is fine. The main thing is that the zakat is paid and it reaches the people to whom it should be reached. And then the Shaykh mentions that it's also mustahab to make maybe a dua. He mentions a couple of du'as. I'll be honest, top of my head, I do not know the authenticity of these du'as. I'm not saying that it's wrong, but I just don't know. And then the Shaykh finishes off by mentioning that it's important to increase in sadaqah generally, especially in the month of Ramadan. And he mentions a hadith where the Prophet was asked which sadaqah is the best, and the Prophet said sadaqah in Ramadan. And Tirmidhi said, هذه حديث هذا حديث غريب. And Tirmidhi, Tirmidhi, inshallah, will maybe study in the future, but Tirmidhi has certain terminologies. And when he says hadith and gharib, he doesn't mean gharib in Mustalah hadith that we don't know. But what he means by gharib is that it's weak. He means da'if. Wallah. And then he mentions a few other hadith. There's one hadith. We know the famous hadith in Muslim, which is as-sadaqatu tutfi'u al-khati'ata kama yutfi'u al-ma'u an-nar. There's this one here, which is similar, which is in Tirmidhi. Inna sadaqa la tutfi'u ghadab al-rabb. So the other hadith was it extinguishes sins. Here it extinguishes the anger of the Lord subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he mentions how the Prophet was even more generous in Ramadan. The next chapter talks about some more rulings of zakah, and what he talks about here is basically to whom can he give zakah. Okay, so first he talks about the importance of zakah. And then here, this ayah is very important. Memorize this ayah. There are 8 types of people. I want you guys to proper ponder over this ayah yourselves, inshallah. So I'm not going to translate it, but really memorize this ayah. There are 8 types of people mentioned in this ayah: al-fuqara, al-masakin, wal-amilina alayha. والمؤلفة قلوبهم والرقاب والغارمين وفي سبيل الله وابن السبيل. سبحان الله, that's 7. How have we got 7? Let me try again. الفقراء والمساكين والعاملين عليها والمؤلفة قلوبهم والرقاب والغارمين في سبيل الله وابن السبيل. نعم, 8. سبحان الله. I counted my fingers and I counted 7 the first time. Yeah, so there are 8. And he has to be given to these 8. He has to be given to these 8. I want you guys, I don't want to go into detail. I want you guys to actually look into this ayah, because once you look in, it'll be easy for you to memorize as well, and it's sticking to your head. So it's very important. So then the Shaykh basically mentions that obviously the first few people are the poor people, and the Shaykh basically saying that if a person has enough money to sustain himself for his day-to-day needs, and so he's not like, he can't go out and buy presents and go out for desserts and maybe go take away, you know, like maybe other people may be able to do, but what he needs on a day-to-day basis he's got. That person is not considered poor. That's not the faqir that is talked about in the ayah. Okay. Then the Shaykh also talks about you can't give zakah to al-mashari' al-khairiyah, you know, these good programs, so like da'wah purposes or building masajid or madaris. Zakah cannot be given there. Sadaqah can, but not zakah. Zakah is the haqq of Allah, so that which Allah has legislated, so it has to be in this specific 8 types of people which have been mentioned in this ayah. And he talks about the importance of that if somebody does give zakah in other than these 8 places, it won't be accepted from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah in the ayah, he says innama yufidu al-hasr, it's limited, exclusive to these 8 types of people. وهذا تعبير يفيد الحصر, it benefits limitation, exclusivity, and so on. And then he finishes off by saying that it's not an obligation that you have to give zakah to all 8 types of people. So you don't have to, let's say if you got £800, that's how much your zakah is. You don't have to give 100 to every single, you know, or 100 to each type of people, but it has to be one of these types. So you can give all 800 to one, or you can give 400 to one, 400 to another. You know, you can do that, but it's not a condition. It has to be all 8. And the dalil is when the Prophet sent Mu'adh to Yemen, he said to him, فَأَعْلِمْهُمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ افْتَرَضَ عَلَيْهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُؤْخَذُ مِنْ أَغْنِيَائِهِمْ فَتُرَدُّ عَلَى وَإِلَى فُقَرَائِهِمْ. That you know, after mentioning teaching Tawheed and Salah, when the person got to Zakah, he said, teach them that they have to give Sadaqah, which is taken from the rich and given to the poor. So the person you mentioned is one type of people, which is the poor. Did I mention the others? المؤلفة قلوبهم and those في سبيل الله and وابن السبيل and so on. نعم. And with this, we'll stop here, inshallah. I think we took 5 chapters. And Zakah is a little bit more tricky, so I don't want to give too much for that. So we'll stop here, inshallah. And tomorrow, inshallah, I think in 2 more sittings we'll finish. We'll stop here for today. Subhanakallah wa hamdika, la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.